My name's Julia Caldwell, and the day Theo Warwick called me outdated with a smirk sharp enough to slice through my 25 years at Pinnacle Precision, I knew my time was up. It wasn't just a word. It was a weapon, lobbed with the kind of contempt you'd aim at a broken machine, not a woman who'd poured her soul into this Detroit factory. My badge beeped once, a shrill little death knell, and locked me out before I could even grab my coat. That's how Pinnacle said goodbye. No handshake, no cake. Just the faint whiff of industrial cleaner and a cubicle stripped bare. I stood at my desk, hands trembling not from sadness, but from something fiercer, something forged in the long nights I'd spent building this place. My workspace used to be alive, blueprints pinned under chipped coffee mugs, post-its scrawled with algorithms only I could decode, a half-eaten bag of licorice I kept for nostalgia. Now it was a ghost town, except for one thing, a framed blueprint of Horizon Sync, my life's work, drawn by hand when Pinnacle was just a dream in a rusty warehouse. I cradled it like a child, slipping it into my tote, my heart pounding with a mix of grief and defiance. Theo strutted by, clutching a protein shake and yammering into his Bluetooth about disruptive scalability. He didn't look at me, didn't need to. To him, I was a relic, like the old punch clocks we'd retired when I was still young, still married, before the car accident took Tom and left me with nothing but this job and my father's voice in my head. Build something that lasts, Julia. I'd done that. Horizon Sync, the automation system running Pinnacle's core, was mine, born in my garage, my tribute to Dad's calloused hands and union pride. Theo didn't know that. He didn't know a lot. Sarah at reception gave me a nod, her eyes soft but tight, like she was watching a friend walk into a storm. I moved through the factory slowly, each step heavy with memories. The break room where we'd laughed over burnt coffee, the calibration bay where I'd tested Horizon Sync's first prototype, the worn tiles by the loading docks where I'd cried after Tom's funeral, knowing work was my only anchor. The interns didn't even recognize me. One called me Miss Janet from accounting. I'd built the logic that kept these machines humming, yet to them, I was nobody outside. Detroit's drizzle greeted me, cold and petty, like the city was shrugging at my exile. I sat in my car, the blueprint on the passenger seat, staring back like it knew what I was planning. I wasn't broken, not yet. Theo thought he'd erase me, but he'd just lit a fuse. Because here's the truth. He didn't just fire me. He fired the only person who could keep his shiny new future from crashing down. The Monday after Theo kicked me to the curb, Pinnacle held a town hall in the main conference room, all fluorescent lights and folding chairs that creaked like they were judging us. I sat in the back, my coat still damp from Detroit's endless drizzle, my heart a tight knot of anger and pride. Theo took the stage like he was auditioning for a TED Talk, his white sneakers squeaking, a headset mic looped around his ear like he was about to launch a rocket, not a factory upgrade. The projector flickered, and there it was. Horizon Sync, my creation, splashed across the screen in bold, stolen glory. We're revolutionizing Pinnacle, Theo declared, arms wide, his voice dripping with the kind of confidence that comes from never getting your hands dirty. No more outdated systems, no more patchwork fixes. Horizon Sync is our future. AI-driven, fully automated, a game changer. My stomach twisted. I'd named it Horizon Sync years ago, dreaming of a system that could evolve with the factory, not replace its soul. I'd built it in my garage, fueled by late-night coffee and memories of my dad teaching me to solder. Theo didn't know that. To him, it was just a shiny toy he'd bought with investor money. He clicked to the next slide, a flowchart so oversimplified it looked like a child's drawing. Some folks, he said, his smirk slicing through the room, are stuck on old-school methods, paper schematics, manual calibrations. The room shifted, eyes darting to me, the old-school engineer who'd kept Pinnacle running through power outages and budget cuts. My face burned, but I didn't flinch. I just sat there, fingers tracing the edge of my notebook, my pulse steadying into something sharp and deliberate. Sarah, 2 rows back, caught my eye. She froze, her pen hovering, and I gave her the smallest smile. Not the kind you share over coffee, but the kind you flash when you've got an ace up your sleeve. She knew that look. Years ago, I'd used it when I slashed calibration times by half and let the department head squirm before revealing it. Sarah's eyes widened, like she could sense the storm brewing inside me. Theo kept talking, tossing out buzzwords: synergy, digital pivot, disruptive efficiency, like he was reading from a tech bro script. A video played, glossy stock footage of robots and smiling workers, set to music that screamed corporate optimism. The tagline flashed, Horizon Sync. The future moves forward. I nearly laughed. That future was mine, built on sleepless nights while Pinnacle was too broke to fund innovation. I'd buried its secrets, so deep no one could touch it without my key. Theo thought he was leading a revolution. He was just dancing on my chessboard, and I was 3 moves from checkmate. Leaving Pinnacle felt like walking out of a home I'd built brick by brick, only to watch someone else burn it down. The Detroit skyline loomed gray and jagged as I stepped into the parking lot, my tote bag heavy with a framed Horizon Sync blueprint. My boots crunched on the gravel, each step echoing the ache in my chest, not just for the job, but for the life I'd poured into it. After Tom died, Pinnacle was my refuge, a place to bury my grief in circuits and code. My dad, a welder who'd raised me on stories of Detroit's glory days, taught me to build things that endure. Horizon Sync was my promise to him, and now Theo had claimed it as his own. And I paused by my car, the drizzle soaking my hair, and thought of the interns who didn't know my name. I designed the logic that kept Pinnacle's robots from grinding to a halt, written code that danced like poetry across their servers. Yet to Theo, I was a fossil, my hand-drawn schematics a punchline. The betrayal stung, but it also lit a fire. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Sarah caught up to me at the edge of the lot, her umbrella wobbling in the wind. "Julia, you okay?" she asked, her voice soft but searching, like she was checking for cracks in my armor. Sarah and I had history, late nights debugging systems, her sharing stories of her family's journey from Vietnam, me confessing how I'd soldered through tears after Tom's funeral. She knew me better than anyone at Pinnacle. "I'm fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I shifted the tote, the blueprint's frame poking through the canvas. "Tell Theo to read the fine print next time." Sarah blinked, her dark eyes narrowing. "Fine print." I smiled, just a flicker, the kind that says checkmate's coming. The kind that starts with U.S. Patent Number 11-234-567B2. Her jaw dropped, and I turned away, leaving her staring as I climbed into my car. Horizon Sync wasn't just a system, it was mine, every line of code, every adaptive algorithm, patented under my name years ago when I realized Pinnacle's old guard wouldn't fund innovation. I protected it like a mother guards a child, knowing this industry chews up women like me and spits us out. As I drove through Detroit's rain-slicked streets, the blueprint sat beside me, a silent partner in my rebellion. Theo thought he'd won, standing in his corner office, sipping his overpriced shake. He didn't know he'd just bet Pinnacle's future on a system that answered only to me. My hands tightened on the wheel, not with anger, but with purpose. I wasn't just leaving. I was setting the stage for his fall. Back in my Detroit garage, the air smelled of solder and the faint lavender sachet my dad slipped into my toolbox decades ago, a quiet reminder of the man who taught me to build with precision and heart. The space was my sanctuary, pegboards lined with tools, binders labeled by project, cables coiled like they'd passed a military inspection. While Theo was probably hyping his vision, at some rooftop bar, I sat at my steel desk, the Horizon Sync blueprint framed on the wall, and opened a drawer labeled Legacy. Inside were 7 folders, each a piece of my revenge, meticulously organized, patents, test logs, licensing terms. I wasn't always this calculated. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, I'd learned to fix things, radios, toasters, my dad's old Chevy, because we couldn't afford replacements. After Tom's death, I poured that grit into Horizon Sync, a system to modernize Pinnacle without gutting its soul. I'd built it here, with scavenged parts and a stray cat for company, when Pinnacle was too cash-strapped to care. But I knew its value, so I'd filed patents, 7 of them, airtight, through a lawyer who specialized in shielding engineers like me from corporate greed. U.S. Patent Number 11, 234, 567. B2 was the crown jewel, locking Horizon Sync's core to me alone. That Saturday, while Detroit hummed with weekend traffic, I worked. I scanned every patent, backed up my original code, and cross-referenced emails with Pinnacle's old CEO, who'd called Horizon Sync brilliant but too risky. I encrypted it all, local drive, cloud, and a sealed envelope mailed to myself, postmarked for the lawyers. My heart raced, not with fear, but with clarity. This wasn't just about pride. It was about protecting what I'd built, what my dad would have called real work. Horizon Sync wasn't just code. It was my promise to keep Detroit's factories alive, not replace them with Theo's buzzword fantasies. I'd coded safeguards into Horizon Sync. 2. Protective subroutines that locked out anyone without my key. If Theo's team tried to override it, the system would fight back, scrambling logs, stalling commands. It wasn't sabotage, it was self-defense, built for a day like this. As I sipped my coffee, the cat curled on a shelf, I felt the weight of my grief lift. Tom used to say I was stubborn as rust. Dad said I was steel. They were both right. Theo had taken my job, my dignity, but he couldn't take my work. I closed the drawer, the folders inside like a loaded deck. Let Theo build his empire on my system. I'd be waiting when it crumbled. BY Wednesday, Pinnacle's production floor was a graveyard of ambition. The hum of machines had turned to screeches, like the factory was crying out for me. I wasn't there. I was in my Detroit kitchen, sipping tea, watching the chaos unfold through a backdoor account I'd set up years ago for system tests. Theo hadn't even changed the admin passwords. Typical. Horizon Sync's rollout, his big bet, was unraveling, and I felt a strange mix of vindication and ache for the workers caught in his mess. IT started Monday, when Theo, in a black turtleneck that screamed I watched a Steve Jobs documentary once, gathered everyone around the main console. He slapped up a chart promising 40% efficiency gains by summer. 2 hours later, the first line jammed. Sensors misread parts, flagging steel bolts as defective plastic. A robotic arm dropped a $6,000 shipment, shattering crates like they were made of glass. The floor went quiet, workers staring like they'd seen a ghost. One whispered it was cursed. Theo laughed it off, his smile tighter than his jeans, and called in consultants, guys in matching polos who looked like they'd never touched a wrench. BY Tuesday, it was worse. The pick-and-place arms twitched like they had a mind of their own, my safeguards kicking in. Horizon Sync's dashboard flashed error codes no one could trace, not in any manual. A line manager called it trying to fix a spaceship with a paperclip. Theo snapped, his face purple, yelling about incompetent coding at the lead integrator, a kid who stammered, "It's custom logic, sir. We didn't write it, it's too advanced." Theo didn't hear him. He was too busy dialing more consultants, signing NDAs, throwing money at a problem he couldn't buy his way out of. Sarah texted me during her break. Line 3 just ate itself. $20,000 in damage. Theo's blaming everyone. I stared at my phone, my heart heavy for her, for the floor crew who'd trusted me to keep things running. But my safeguards weren't cruel. They were necessary. Without my key, Horizon Sync locked out intruders, shifting logic to protect itself. Theo thought he could slap a logo on my work and call it his. He didn't know it was built to bite back. The whispers started by Thursday. Workers remembered how smoothly things ran when I was there, how I debugged crashes in minutes. Julia would have fixed this, one said. Theo overheard and snarled, "We don't need dinosaurs." But the floor was bleeding money, morale was shot, and his consultants were taking selfies in the parking lot, muttering about a proprietary nightmare. I sipped my tea, the Detroit skyline gray outside my window. Theo was drowning in my code, and I hadn't lifted a finger. My dad's voice echoed, "Build it strong, Julia. Let the fools break themselves on it." By the next Monday, Pinnacle wasn't manufacturing, it was hemorrhaging. The Detroit factory, once a steady heartbeat of steel and precision, was a chaos of blinking alarms and silent machines. I sat in my garage, refreshing my old admin portal, watching Horizon Sync do exactly what I designed, lock out the unworthy. My heart twisted. Not for Theo, but for the workers, the ones like Sarah who'd poured years into this place. Still, the fire in my chest burned brighter than the guilt. This was justice, and I'd earned it. The collapse started with a misfire on line 1. The welders, meant to seal chassis frames, sliced them instead, turning $7,000 parts into scrap in minutes. Sparks flew, a forklift nearly tipped hauling the wreckage, and the diagnostic logs? They looped, untraceable, like Horizon Sync was laughing at Theo's team. A consultant muttered it was gaslighting the system. By Tuesday, barcode scanners went rogue, tagging steel as wood, routing shipments to hazardous waste disposal. Pinnacle paid twice to fix it. 3 managers quit after Theo's tantrum in a meeting, where he hurled a marker and screamed, "This isn't losing to a relic." The floor buzzed with my name now. "Julia built this," a worker said. "Things worked when she was here." Theo overheard and snapped, "We're not crawling back to her." But he was flailing, his Bluetooth dangling like a broken toy as he paced, ranting about data silos to consultants who'd already given up. His code refresh crashed the inventory system for hours, costing another $50,000. Sarah texted. Theo broke a whiteboard. His assistants in tears. I winced, picturing her stuck in that mess, but my resolve held. Horizon Sync wasn't a virus. It was my shield, protecting my dad's legacy from Theo's greed. I end my pottery class, shaping clay under Barbara's glittery gaze. I felt strangely calm. My bowl wasn't art. It was structure, like the systems I'd built. Sarah's updates kept coming. Line 2 trashed $40,000 in parts. Consultants say the code's hostile. I texted back. It's not hostile. It's loyal. Horizon Sync's safeguards weren't traps. They were my voice, coded to stall anyone who didn't respect its architect. Theo thought he could erase me, but every crash was my name echoing through Pinnacle's halls. By Thursday, the factory was a ghost town. Machines blinked, embarrassed. Workers avoided eye contact, the air thick with defeat. Theo doubled down, hiring more freelancers, but the system fought harder, locking nodes, scrambling commands. My tea grew cold as I watched the portal, my heart a mix of pride and sorrow. Pinnacle was crumbling, and Theo was learning what happens when you steal from a woman who built her life from grief and steel. My dad would have smiled. Let him break, Julia. You built it to last. It was Friday evening, a week since Theo sent me packing, when my landline rang, a relic only a few souls still used. Detroit's sunset painted my kitchen gold, and I was watching a squirrel battle my bird feeder, stubborn but losing. I picked up, expecting my neighbor griping about borrowed pliers. Instead, Victor Hayes' voice crackled through, steady but worn, like a man who'd seen too many battles. Julia, it's Victor from Pinnacle. My heart skipped, not from surprise but from the weight of his tone. Victor, ex-army, was the last honest man in that factory, the one who'd driven a truck himself to save a deadline. Bit late for a chat, I said, leaning against the counter, my voice calm but laced with the hurt I'd carried since Theo's sneer. Victor exhaled, the sound of a man shedding pride. Horizon Sync's a disaster, Julia. Nothing syncs. The system's locking us out, rewriting its own logs. It's like trying to solve a puzzle that fights back. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. My safeguards were working, protecting my work from Theo's clumsy hands. Sounds like a problem, I said, watching the squirrel give up and scamper off. My heart ached for Victor. He'd always respected me, shared my coffee when I was drowning in grief after Tom, but this wasn't his fight to fix. We need you, Julia, he said, voice low. Consult a few days to bridge the old systems with this mess. You built half this place. We think Horizon Sync's tied to your work. He paused, then added, Theo doesn't know I'm calling. He'd rather burn Pinnacle down than admit he needs you. That almost broke me. Victor, risking his neck for the company we'd both bled for. But I thought of my dad, his hands scarred from welding, telling me to never let anyone steal my worth. I thought of Tom, who'd believed in my stubborn heart. I thought of Theo calling me outdated like I was scrap metal. Victor, I said, my voice steady but heavy, you're the only one at Pinnacle I'd even consider helping. But my consulting rates? They're sky high. You'd need to sell Theo's fancy car to afford my email. Silence. Then a soft chuckle, defeated but warm. You're enjoying this retirement, aren't you? Pottery, gardening, sleeping past dawn, I said, glancing at my clay-stained hands. Turns out, old-fashioned suits me. Another pause, and I heard the weight of his choice, loyalty to Pinnacle or respect for me. Understood, he said, and the line went dead. I set the phone down, my chest tight but my resolve ironclad. This wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. Theo had stolen my work, but I'd built it to fight back. Pinnacle wasn't mine to save anymore. I'd save myself instead. The end came quietly, not with a bang but a blinking cursor on Pinnacle's main terminal. It was a Monday, the Detroit air heavy with autumn chill, when Line 1's diagnostic froze. The screen flashed, unauthorized access detected. Horizon Sync lockdown initiated. Error 107B. License validation failed. In seconds, every terminal went dark, then blue, white text glaring like a verdict. The quarter's production schedule vanished, corrupted into gibberish. Machines stilled, their lights blinking like scolded children. My safeguards had sealed the gates, and Theo had no key. I was in my garden, lavender swaying, when Sarah texted, "It's over.
System's dead."
Theo's screaming into a broken headset. My heart thumped, not with joy but with a quiet, hard-earned peace. Emails flooded Pinnacle's inbox, clients like Midwest Steel demanding answers, lawyers citing breached contracts. Theo tried a manual reboot, slamming his hand on the biometric scanner. Nothing. The system needed me, its architect, and I was shaping clay in a community center, not saving his empire. BY Noon, the Detroit Free Press ran the story. Pinnacle Precision paralyzed by tech failure. It called Theo ambitious but outmatched, quoting a worker. Julia Caldwell's systems never crash like this. Investors bailed, one calling Horizon Sync a $35 million gamble gone wrong. Theo's war room, once alive with his scented markers and buzzword charts, was a tomb of cracked tablets and abandoned coffee cups. He stood alone, his Bluetooth dangling like a noose, as consultants fled and orders evaporated. Then my letter arrived, delivered by a courier in a suit sharper than Theo's ego. 8 pages from Harper and Klein, IP lawyers who made corporate thieves sweat. It was a cease and desist, cold and precise, stating Pinnacle had violated 7 patents, mine, indisputably, from Horizon Sync's core to its adaptive logic. They had 5 days to stop using my system, swear it in writing, or face lawsuits under U.S. Patent Act Section 271. The price to license Horizon Sync? $35 million, plus a public apology in Industry Today and Pinnacle's investor brief, naming me as the architect and condemning Theo's ageist dismissal. Theo went silent, his swagger gone. Pinnacle's assets were quietly sold, the company carved up like a failed startup. I sat in my garden, tablet in hand, reading the headlines. Pinnacle faces liquidation over patent dispute. I didn't cheer. I sipped my tea, the lavender sweet in the air, and felt my dad's pride, Tom's quiet faith. I'd built Horizon Sync to last, and it had, outlasting Theo's arrogance, protecting my legacy. Sarah texted, "You didn't just win, Julia. You rewrote the game." I smiled, my heart finally light. Theo, everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, heartbreak, and a fight I never wanted but couldn't lose. If my story hit you, smash that subscribe button and join us. Every line of code, every blueprint, tells a story of grit, loss, and standing tall. Keep building your own truth, and I'll see you at the next victory.